the moment my grandson looked me in the eye and said, "You're useless now, Grandma." Something inside me broke, but instead of yelling or crying, I just smiled, because I knew exactly what I was about to do. He thought I was weak. He had no idea what was coming. My name's Margaret. I'm 78 years old, and I've lived long enough to know that silence can be louder than words. I raised my children alone after my husband passed away 30 years ago. I worked in a bakery, baked cakes through tears, and somehow managed to keep a roof over our heads. My grandson, Ethan, was my heart. I held him before his first steps. I fed him before his mother even woke up for work. But the boy I once rocked to sleep had turned into someone I barely recognized. And the day he told me I was useless was the day I stopped being his sweet old grandma and started being his biggest lesson. It started one morning when I was sitting at the kitchen table with my knitting needles, trying to fix a torn sweater for Ethan's mother. Ethan stormed into the room, holding his phone like it was more important than the air he breathed. He didn't even look up when I greeted him. "Morning, sweetheart," I said softly. He mumbled something, eyes glued to the screen. I asked if he could help me take out the trash because the bags were too heavy. He sighed, rolled his eyes, and said, "You shouldn't be living here if you can't even take out the trash, Grandma. You're kinda useless now." The words hit me like a slap. Useless. After everything I had done, after every sleepless night and every sacrifice, I was now useless? I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't cry. I just nodded slowly and said, "You might be right. Ethan, maybe I am." He shrugged and walked away, headphones in, not knowing that he had just started something he couldn't stop. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice echoing in my head. Useless. I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the things I had done for that boy. I had paid for his first guitar. I had cooked his favorite meals every weekend. I had sat through every school concert, every heartbreak, every victory, and now, to him, I was just an old woman taking up space. But I wasn't angry. I was disappointed, and disappointment, my dear, is colder than anger. The next morning, I decided to teach Ethan a lesson. Not with shouting, not with punishment, but with silence and wisdom. I started by changing my routine. I stopped cooking breakfast. I stopped doing laundry. I stopped tidying the living room after his mess. When he asked, "Grandma, where's my clean shirt?" I just said, "Oh, I guess you'll have to figure that out. Useless people can't do much, remember?" He looked confused, maybe even a little guilty, but still he didn't apologize. So I went further. I stopped answering his questions. When he asked how to fix the leaky faucet, I said, "Maybe YouTube knows. I'm too old to understand those things." When he complained that his mom was always busy, I said, "At least she's useful." Slowly, I saw the guilt growing in his eyes, but that wasn't enough. He needed to feel what I felt. So one Friday afternoon, I told my daughter that I'd be spending the weekend somewhere else. I didn't say where. I just packed a small bag and left a note on the table. The note said, "Don't worry about me. You were right. Useless people shouldn't take up space. Love, Grandma." When I left the house, my heart was pounding. I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing, but sometimes love needs to hurt to be understood. I took the bus to a nearby town, a small seaside village where my friend Clara owned a bed and breakfast. When she saw me standing there with my suitcase, she hugged me tight. "What happened, Margaret?" she asked. I told her everything. Every word, every tone, every look. She listened quietly, then said something I'll never forget. "You can't teach him love by talking. You have to let him miss it." Back home, things were different. Ethan came home from school to find my chair empty, my knitting basket gone, and the house unusually quiet. At first, he probably thought I was out for the day. Then the hours passed. Then night fell. And for the first time in years, no dinner was waiting for him. He called my phone. I didn't answer. He texted. I left it on scene. Then he called my daughter. When she told him I'd gone away for the weekend, he panicked. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time, his voice was shaky. "Grandma, where are you? I'm sorry, okay? Please come home. The house feels weird without you." I almost cried, but I stayed silent for a second longer. Then I said, "Oh, you don't need me, remember? I'm useless." He broke down, right there on the phone. "Grandma, please." I didn't mean it. I was stupid. I was mad. "You're not useless. You're everything." That's when I knew the lesson had worked. When I returned home 2 days later, Ethan ran to the door before I could even unlock it. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. He was crying, actually crying, the way he did when he was 5 and scraped his knee. He kept saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I stroked his hair and said softly, "Do you know why that word hurt me so much, Ethan?" He nodded, but I continued anyway. "Because I spent my life making sure you never felt useless. I gave you everything I had, not because I wanted thanks, but because I wanted you to understand love. And when you said that word, it told me you forgot what love looks like." He couldn't even look at me. His face was buried in my shoulder, and I could feel his tears soaking through my blouse. Then I said, "I forgive you, but remember this. One day someone will look at you and say something cruel. And when he said he'd changed. He said he respected me now. But the night I opened the door to his room, I realized I didn't really know my grandson at all. And what I found hidden under his bed changed everything. After the day Ethan broke down in my arms, things finally felt peaceful again. For the first time in years, I could sit in my rocking chair, sip my tea, and hear laughter in the house instead of slamming doors. He started helping me in the garden, bringing me flowers, even cooking breakfast sometimes. It was beautiful, almost too beautiful. But deep down, I knew people don't change overnight. Sometimes an apology hides guilt, and guilt always finds a way out. One Sunday morning, I was making pancakes when my daughter, Laura, came downstairs with a frown. "Mom," she said quietly, "I think Ethan's been skipping classes again." My heart dropped. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "His teacher called. Said he's missed 3 days this week. When I asked him about it, he said he was at the library. But the library closes early now." That familiar sting of disappointment returned after everything that had happened. Had he gone back to lying? I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think the best of him. The boy who cried into my shoulder and promised to do better. But when love blinds you, truth becomes a stranger, or so. I told myself I'd find out quietly, without accusations. Over the next few days, I started noticing little things. Ethan was restless again. Late-night whispers on the phone, muffled laughter behind closed doors, and the smell of something strange when he came home. One evening, when he walked past me, I caught a faint scent of smoke on his jacket. Not cigarettes. Not exactly. Something heavier. I asked gently, "Ethan, honey, have you been around anyone smoking?" He froze for a second. "No, Grandma, why?" I smiled. "Just curious." But his eyes told another story, darting away, avoiding mine. That's when I knew he was hiding something again. And it broke my heart. Not because of what he was doing, but because he was becoming a stranger again, just when I'd gotten him back. The moment of truth came one rainy Thursday evening. Ethan had gone out after dinner, saying he was going to a friend's house to study. Hours passed. Midnight. No sound. His phone went straight to voicemail. Laura was asleep, exhausted from work. I sat in my chair, the clock ticking louder and louder with every passing minute. At 1:30 a.m., I heard footsteps outside. Heavy, uneven. The door creaked open. Ethan stumbled in. His hair was messy, his jacket soaked, his face pale. I said softly, "Ethan, where have you been?" He flinched. "Nowhere, Grandma. Just out." "Out where?" He didn't answer. Then he said something that made my heart stop. "Why do you care so much? You already thought I was useless once." Those words, twisted, defensive, cut through me. He was angry, guilty, and scared all at once. I wanted to yell, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "Go to bed. We'll talk in the morning." And that night, I couldn't sleep again. The next morning, I went to his room to bring him breakfast. When I knocked, no answer. So I opened the door quietly. His room was a mess. Clothes everywhere, papers on the floor, the faint smell of smoke again. And then I saw it. A small metal box under his bed, half hidden. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. Inside were a few crumpled bills, a lighter, and a small packet of something brown. My heart sank. I didn't know what it was exactly, but I knew it wasn't good. That's when Ethan's voice came from behind me. Low, sharp. "What are you doing, Grandma?" I turned around slowly. He was standing in the doorway, his face pale, his hands shaking. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was heavy, like the world had stopped spinning. Then I said, softly but firmly, "Ethan, what is this?" He looked down, his eyes filled with tears. "It's not what you think," he whispered. "Then tell me what it is." He didn't. He just collapsed onto the floor and buried his face in his hands. And I did what I always do. I sat down beside him. It took him an hour to speak. He told me everything. He'd fallen in with a group of older boys. Kids who made him feel cool. Who said he didn't need school. Who gave him that packet just to try. He didn't even like it, but he didn't know how to say no. He was scared they'd laugh at him. He said, "I didn't want you to see me as a disappointment again." And that broke me, because in trying not to disappoint me, he'd fallen even deeper. I held his face in my hands and said, "Ethan, being disappointed in someone is not the same as giving up on them. I never gave up on you. We sat there for hours. He cried until there were no tears left. And then we made a deal. I wouldn't tell his mother, yet, but he had to fix this. He had to cut off those friends. He had to face the school counselor. And most of all, he had to rebuild the trust he broke again. He promised he would. The next few weeks were hard. He started going to school again, meeting with the counselor, staying home at night. I watched him closely, but not like a warden. Like a shadow, quiet, but always there. Some nights he'd sit beside me on the porch, both of us silent, just watching the stars. Once he said, "Grandma, I don't deserve how patient you are." And I said, "That's the thing about love, Ethan. It doesn't wait for people to deserve it." I thought the worst was behind us. I thought my grandson had finally changed. But the day I saw the document on his desk, my heart stopped. He'd used my name, my house, and my love to betray me. After months of peace, life had become gentle again. Mornings filled with sunlight, quiet laughter, and the smell of pancakes. Just how I liked it. Ethan was doing well in school, volunteering, even saving money from his part-time job. I finally felt proud again. Maybe, I thought, the storm had passed, but life has a cruel way of testing you again. Just when you start to breathe easy. Because love isn't measured when things are good. It's tested when the people you trust hurt you the most. It began one afternoon when Ethan came home looking nervous. He kissed my cheek, smiled too quickly, and said, "Hey, Grandma, I'm going out for a bit." I noticed he was dressed up, too neatly. Shirt tucked in, hair combed, shoes shining. "Where to?" I asked. "Just a friend's place," he said, avoiding eye contact. I didn't think much of it then. He was young. He had a life. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things. Strange phone calls, hushed whispers, and papers left carelessly on the table. Whenever I walked in, he'd quickly fold them away. Once I saw my name written on one of them. That's when my gut told me something was wrong. It happened on a quiet Tuesday morning. Ethan had gone out early, and I went to clean his room, just to tidy up like grandmas do. I wasn't snooping. I just wanted to dust the shelves and water the small plant he kept by the window. That's when I saw it. A thin white folder on his desk. On the front, my full name printed clearly. I hesitated. My heart said, don't look. But my mind whispered, you need to know. So I opened it. Inside was a legal document. Property transfer papers. My house, my address, my signature forged. My hands went cold. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. I sat down, staring at the paper. The signature looked so real, almost perfect. But I knew my handwriting. I knew what was mine and what wasn't. Ethan, what had he done? When Ethan came home that evening, I was waiting at the kitchen table. The folder sat right in front of me. He froze when he saw it. Grandma, you weren't supposed to... Supposed to what? I interrupted, my voice shaking. Find out that you tried to take my house? He tried to speak, but words tangled in his throat. It's not what you think, he said. Then explain it to me, I said, trying to keep calm. He sat down, head in his hands, and said quietly, I just needed money. Just a little. I thought I could take a loan using the house, then pay it back before you ever knew. My stomach turned. You forged my name, Ethan. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. Tears filled his eyes. I was desperate, Grandma. My friend got into trouble. He owed money. They were threatening him. I just wanted to help. I closed my eyes. Even now, even after everything, his heart was too big and his judgment too small. For days, I couldn't even look at him. I cooked, cleaned, smiled when he was around. But my eyes couldn't meet his. Every sound of his footsteps in the hallway made my chest tighten. One evening, he knocked on my door. Grandma, please. I messed up. Again. But I swear I didn't mean to hurt you. I turned to him and said quietly, Do you know what hurts more than betrayal, Ethan? He looked up, eyes red. When it comes from someone you believed was finally healing. He broke down crying, right there on the floor. I wanted to hug him, but sometimes love needs distance to sink in. So I said, You're old enough to make choices. Now you'll live with the consequences. Tomorrow we're going to the police station. You'll tell them everything. His eyes widened. Police? Grandma, please. No more running. No more lies. I'd rather see you punished for the truth than lost in another lie. The next morning we went together. He didn't say a word the whole way. At the counter, I spoke to an officer and explained what had happened. Ethan confessed. His hands shook the whole time. The officer looked at me and said, Ma'am, we can open a formal report if you want. Or you can settle this privately. I turned to Ethan. He was crying again. Silent tears this time. The kind that come from shame, not sadness. I took a deep breath. I don't want to ruin his life, I said. I just want him to understand the value of trust. The officer nodded. In that case, he'll need to attend community service and mandatory counseling for forgery and misuse of documents. Ethan nodded without protest. When we left the station, the silence between us was thick. But it wasn't anger anymore. It was truth. The following weeks were hard. Ethan worked at a local shelter for his community service. He cleaned floors, served food, and met people who had lost everything. One evening, he came home quiet. I asked, Rough day? He shook his head. No, just humbling. There was a man there who said he used to have a family, a house, everything. Lost it all because he took what wasn't his. He told me the guilt is worse than the punishment. He looked up at me then, his eyes different, calmer, older. Grandma, he said, I finally get it. What I did to you, I didn't just risk your house. I risked losing your love. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I hugged him. Months passed. Ethan finished his service, went back to school, and got a small scholarship for art. Things felt normal again. Then one afternoon, the doorbell rang. A man stood there, mid-30s, clean-cut, nervous. He said, Are you Mrs. Margaret Hall? Yes. I said cautiously. He smiled awkwardly. I'm Daniel. Ethan's friend. The one he tried to help. My stomach tightened. He continued. I just wanted to say, I never asked him to do that. He was trying to protect me from my own mess. I didn't deserve it. He handed me a small envelope and left before I could respond. Inside the envelope was a note and $2,000 in cash. The note said, "For the house that wasn't mine to touch, and for the love that I never earned, thank you." I sat there for a long time staring at it, realizing Ethan's choice had somehow started to heal more than just him. Later that night, Ethan came home. I showed him the envelope. He looked surprised, then emotional. I didn't think he'd actually do it, he said. I nodded slowly. Sometimes the best lessons don't come from lectures. They come from regret. We sat quietly. The house was warm, filled with the smell of cookies baking in the oven. He looked around and said softly, "Grandma, I almost lost this place. I'll never forget that." I smiled, touched his hand and said, "Ethan, you could lose everything, but as long as you never lose your heart, you'll always find your way back home." He didn't answer. He just hugged me, longer than usual. The following year, Ethan graduated with honors. He gave a speech at school. He said he'd always protect me. He said there were no more secrets. But when I opened that old wooden trunk in the attic, I discovered a truth my own grandson had kept hidden. A truth about my past. The house finally felt alive again. Laughter at breakfast, the clinking of cups, the smell of cinnamon and butter. After everything we'd survived, the lies, the forgiveness, the healing. Peace had finally found us. Ethan had started volunteering at the historical archives downtown. He'd grown into a young man with purpose, and watching him made my heart proud. Until one afternoon when a letter arrived. An old envelope with my maiden name written in faded ink. It was postmarked 1969. I held the letter like it was a ghost from another lifetime. Ethan saw it too. His face went pale. "Grandma, maybe don't open that," he said quickly. "Why not?" I asked. He hesitated, eyes flickering like a child caught in a lie. I found it a while ago. I was going to show you when the time was right. The time was right now. So I opened it. Inside was a photograph of a young woman, me, holding a baby I didn't recognize, and a short letter that said, "For when you're ready to tell him the truth." My hands shook. "What truth?" I whispered. Ethan stared at the floor. "That baby. It's not who you think." He took a deep breath. "While I was working at the archives, I found adoption records. They listed your name, before you married Grandpa, and a male infant born 1954. The file said, adopted by Charles and Evelyn Ward. I felt the room tilt. I sat down. That was the year before I met my late husband, the year I never talked about. I thought that chapter of my life was buried with my youth, but Ethan had unearthed it. "I wanted to protect you," he said softly. "I didn't know if it would hurt you or help you." My throat tightened. "All these years you knew?" He nodded. "For 3 months. I tried to find the man in the photo. Grandma, he's still alive. His name was Michael Ward, 70 years old, a retired carpenter in Oregon. Ethan had found him through public records. He doesn't know you're alive," Ethan said. "I think he's been looking for you too. There are posts online, searching for Margaret L. Miller." I didn't speak for a long time. My hands trembled, my heart racing between guilt and longing. When I was 19, I'd been sent away, pregnant, unmarried, and terrified. My parents arranged the adoption in secret. I never saw my baby again. And now, after all these years, my grandson had brought him back into my world. That night, I sat by the landline, dialing the number Ethan had written on a slip of paper. It rang twice. "Hello?" A deep voice answered. I froze. "Mr. Ward?" "Yes?" I swallowed hard. "This is Margaret Miller." There was silence. A silence so heavy I could hear his breath catch. Then softly, "Mom?" The sound of that word after 70 years broke something inside me and healed something else all at once. A month later, he came to visit. Ethan drove me to the airport. My palms were sweating the entire trip. When Michael walked through the terminal, I recognized him instantly. The same blue eyes, the same dimple on his left cheek. He walked up slowly, almost afraid to believe it was real. We didn't speak. We just held each other. He whispered, "I thought you didn't want me." Tears streamed down my face. I wanted you every day. Ethan stood back, eyes glistening. Michael spent a week with us. He and Ethan bonded instantly. 2 generations bridging the years I'd lost. We cooked together, told stories, and went through old albums. But one night while I slept, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. Michael said, "She shouldn't know everything. The reason I tracked her down, it's not just family." My heart skipped, Ethan said. "She deserves to know." I waited until morning, then asked them directly, "What aren't you telling me?" Michael looked guilty. "Mom, when I found you, I was in trouble. I borrowed money from someone dangerous. I thought maybe if we connected, you could help me out. But then I met you, and I couldn't ask." It felt like history repeating. Another man I loved hiding behind lies and debt. I turned to Ethan. "You knew?" He nodded slowly. He promised he'd handle it before telling you. I walked outside, needing air. Sometimes forgiveness is a flame, warm but capable of burning everything you touch. That evening, I called the man Michael owed money to. A local lender. I told him the debt would be paid in full. "By me," Ethan protested. "Grandma, don't! You've done enough saving for a lifetime." I smiled sadly. "Maybe. But sometimes saving others is the only way I know how to live." I sold a piece of jewelry, my late husband's watch, and cleared the debt. When Michael found out, he broke down. "I never deserved this," he said. I took his hands. "None of us do. That's what makes it grace." We held a small dinner, me, Ethan, and Michael. The table glowed under soft light. Laughter filled the room again. Michael raised a glass. "To lost time and second chances," Ethan grinned. "And to my grandmother, who turns every mistake into a miracle." I felt tears rise again, but this time they were gentle. Before Michael left, he handed me a new envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "I can't give you back the years we lost, but I can give you this, the promise that our story doesn't end in regret. Thank you for loving me before you even knew me." I pressed the letter to my chest. Ethan wrapped his arm around me. "Looks like everyone told me my husband died peacefully in his sleep. For 40 years I believed them. Until last week, when my grandson handed me a dusty old journal, and I learned that the man I loved had been living a lie. After Michael left, I thought my story had finally found its ending. Ethan visited every weekend, calling me every night just to check on me. For the first time in decades, I felt surrounded by love again. Love that stretched across generations, patching old wounds. But sometimes life doesn't close old chapters. It waits, quietly, for the moment you're strong enough to reopen them. That moment came when Ethan found a box labeled Charles, 1983. My late husband's handwriting. Inside was a worn leather-bound journal, and the words inside it made my knees go weak. The journal was tucked behind a stack of photo albums in the attic. Ethan found it while helping me clean. He called down, "Grandma, did Grandpa keep a diary?" My heart stopped. Charles had always been a private man, gentle, loving, but secretive in ways I never fully understood. I took the journal from Ethan's hands, feeling the cracks in the leather. When I opened it, the first page read, "If she ever finds this, it means the truth finally caught up to me." Ethan frowned. "What truth?" I didn't answer. I just started reading. The first few pages were normal. Mentions of work at the factory, our little garden, and the day he bought me a birthday brooch. But a few pages in, his handwriting changed. Jagged, rushed. They came by again. They asked about the night at the docks. I told them I wasn't there. God forgive me, I was. I froze. The docks? What docks? My husband had never told me about any incident. Never mentioned anything criminal or secret. Ethan leaned over. What does that mean? I shook my head slowly. I don't know, but we're going to find out. That night, I went through old papers in the basement. Newspaper clippings, receipts, anything from the early 80s. And there it was, a yellowed article. Warehouse fire claims 1 life. Suspected arson. No arrests made. The date matched his journal entry. My hands trembled as I read the names of those questioned. And there it was, Charles H. Miller. I whispered, he lied to me. Ethan read over my shoulder, his voice soft but steady. Maybe he was scared, Grandma. I nodded. Maybe. But I deserved to know the truth. The next morning, we went to the local records office. After hours of searching, we found the police file. Half burnt, barely legible, but one name was circled in red ink. Thomas Ward. I froze. Ward. Michael's adoptive father. My son's adoptive father was connected to the fire that haunted my husband's final years. My heart began to race. Could it be that Charles and Thomas had known each other? Ethan looked stunned. Grandma, what if Grandpa and Michael's father were involved in something together? I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I knew this wasn't coincidence. Later that night, I read the final pages of Charles's journal. Thomas warned me that keeping quiet would destroy us both. I told him I'd protect Margaret no matter what. But secrets have a way of finding their way home. If you're reading this, my love, I'm sorry. The fire wasn't an accident. I didn't start it, but I didn't stop it either. And the man who died that night wasn't supposed to be there. Ours blurred the ink. The man who died that night, was it Michael's real father? Was it someone innocent? I felt my world spinning again. All those years of quiet dinners, loving smiles, gentle hands, and behind them, a secret that could tear my family apart. I called Michael the next morning. When I told him what we'd found, there was silence on the line. Then he said something that made my heart stop. I already knew. He flew down the next day. When he arrived, his eyes looked older, heavier. He sat across from me and said, "When my adoptive father died, I found letters in his safe, letters from a man named Charles. They were about that same fire. He said he owed him everything for keeping his secret." I whispered, "So your father knew my husband before the adoption?" Michael nodded. "I think they made some kind of deal. My father never told me the details, but it wasn't just fate that I ended up with the Wards." I felt my entire world tilting. I stood up, trembling. "So your father and my husband, they were both part of this? They both hid it from us." Michael reached across the table. "They did it to protect you. The man who died, he was blackmailing them. They were both scared." I stepped back, shaking my head. "Protect me? Lies don't protect. They rot. They rot everything they touch." Ethan tried to calm me, but I couldn't stop shaking. All those years I thought I knew my husband. The man who read me poetry, who fixed my car, who prayed with me before bed. And all along, he'd carried this. He'd taken this to his grave. That night, I sat alone in my living room, the journal on my lap. I stared at the clock. 11:17 p.m. That was the time listed on the fire report. I whispered, "Charles." "Why?" Then, as if fate wasn't done with me yet, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Miller?" A man's voice asked. "Yes, this is Detective Larson. I was one of the junior officers on that warehouse case. We recently reopened it due to new evidence." My breath caught. "New evidence?" He sighed. "A letter found among Thomas Ward's belongings. It clears your husband." A few weeks after my husband's name was cleared, A stranger showed up at my doorstep. He said he knew the truth about that night. The fire, the letter, and why my husband really died. And when he told me who he was, I realized my story wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Peace doesn't last forever. Not in real life. After the memorial, I thought I'd finally made peace with my past. The journal was back on the shelf. Michael was visiting every other weekend. Ethan had gone back to school, and I'd started writing again. Little stories for the first time since my husband passed. But one cold afternoon, while the kettle whistled and the rain tapped gently on the window, someone knocked on my door. 3 sharp knocks, not the friendly kind. The kind that tells you your world is about to change. When I opened the door, a man stood there in a long brown coat, soaked from the rain. He looked to be in his 60s, his eyes tired but sharp. "Mrs. Miller?" he asked. "Yes." "My name is David Lawson. I used to work with your husband." That name hit me like a cold wind. Charles had never mentioned a David Lawson. "May I come in?" he asked quietly. I hesitated, then nodded. He stepped inside, glancing around the living room, his gaze landing on the old photo of Charles on the mantel. He sighed. You kept his smile alive. Something about the way he said it, heavy, almost guilty, made my stomach twist. He sat down slowly, removing his hat. "I was there the night of the fire," he said. My heart froze. "What do you mean you were there?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I was the one who called your husband. I told him the warehouse was on fire. I begged him to come." I whispered, "Why would you do that?" His eyes met mine. Because the man trapped inside was my brother, and Charles was the only one who could save him. The room fell silent. He continued, voice trembling. "Your husband went back in for him. But by the time he reached him, the beams had collapsed. He got your husband out first. But your husband went back in again. He didn't make it." Tears burned my eyes. "You're telling me he died saving someone else?" David nodded. "He didn't just die peacefully, Mrs. Miller. He died a hero." I could barely speak. For years, I'd pictured Charles slipping away in bed, quiet and calm. But that was a lie told to protect me. David reached into his coat pocket and handed me a small, scorched metal locket. I kept this all these years. It was his. He told me, "If I don't make it out, give this to Margaret." I opened the locket with shaking hands. Inside was a tiny photo. Me, holding baby Michael's adoption papers, and a folded note. "Tell her I forgive her, and I'll wait where the light never dies." The words blurred through my tears. David said softly, "He never stopped loving you. Even when he learned about the baby you had to give up," he told me once. "She carried enough pain for both of us." I looked at him, stunned. "He knew?" David nodded. "Thomas told him before the fire. He knew you had a son, but he didn't want to break your heart again." David handed me another envelope. Yellowed, sealed, but never sent. This was found in his locker after the fire. I couldn't bring myself to deliver it back then. I opened it slowly. The handwriting was unmistakably Charles's. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm sorry for the silence. I know about the child. I know why you couldn't tell me. I don't blame you. I thank you for surviving it. I always promised I'd protect you, and I still mean it. If something happens to me, don't let the guilt eat you alive. Live for both of us." I knew my time was close. But before I left this world, I needed Ethan to know the truth. The part of our story I'd never told anyone. So I wrote him a letter, and when he opened it, everything he thought he knew about me changed forever. Life slows down when you know the end is near. The ticking clock stops feeling like an enemy. It starts sounding like a friend, gently counting down the moments you have left. For months after the stranger's visit, I'd felt at peace. The truth about my husband had healed a wound I thought would never close. But peace has a strange way of making you look backward. Not with regret, but with unfinished love. And there was one more secret I'd carried. One I couldn't take to my grave. It was summer again. The garden was blooming wild, the air thick with the smell of jasmine and soil. Ethan had just graduated. He'd gotten a job offer in another city. And though I smiled when he told me, my heart quietly cracked. He said, "Grandma, I'll visit all the time. Promise." I smiled. "Don't promise the impossible, sweetheart. Just live the life I couldn't." Every morning I'd sit by the window watching the sunrise, writing bits of my story in my old diary. Ethan had found the courage to dream again. And in a way, that was enough for me. But one night after he went to bed, I felt the weight in my chest. The kind of pain you don't talk about because it feels too final. I sat at my desk, opened a fresh sheet of paper and began writing. The letter wasn't long, but every word felt like blood and forgiveness poured into ink. "My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I've gone to join your grandpa. Don't cry too long. I've lived more than most people ever dreamed to. But there's one truth you deserve to know. When I was 19 before I met your grandfather, I had a child. I was young, scared, and the world wasn't kind to girls like me. I gave him up for adoption because I thought I wasn't enough. That child was your father, Michael. He doesn't know the full story. I told him bits and pieces, but never the whole truth. I didn't want him to carry my shame. But now you must know this. Your father wasn't my first heartbreak. He was my first miracle. Love him even when he's quiet. Forgive him when he fails, because he carries the same pain I once did. The fear of being forgotten. And Ethan, promise me this. Never let love go unspoken. It's the one thing that lives longer than time itself, with every heartbeat that's left in me. Grandma." When I sealed the letter, I kissed it once. The way I used to kiss his forehead when he was little. I hid it in the drawer beneath my old journal, the one he had once found, because I knew someday he'd look there again. 3 weeks later, my body gave in. I remember the morning sunlight spilling through the curtains, Ethan humming in the kitchen, the sound of life still happening around me. And then, suddenly, the sound faded, like a movie ending mid-scene. The doctor said it was peaceful. Ethan said I looked like I was smiling. But in that moment, that quiet space between the last breath and forever, I saw him, Charles, standing in the garden, waiting, just like he promised in his letter. He reached out his hand, and the world faded into light. Days later, Ethan couldn't sleep. He said the house felt too quiet, too big, without my humming and the smell of tea. So he went into my study, the room he'd been too afraid to enter since the funeral. He ran his fingers over the old bookshelf, the photos, the notebooks. Then he saw the drawer slightly open. Inside was the sealed letter, his name written in my shaky handwriting. He opened it slowly. By the time he finished reading, tears blurred his eyes. He read it again, and again. Then he whispered, "You never stop teaching, even now." Ethan called his father, Michael, and asked him to come home. When Michael arrived, they sat in silence for a long time. 2 generations of broken men learning how to start over. Ethan handed him the letter. Michael read it once, then set it down, covering his face with his hands. "She carried that her whole life," he whispered. "And I never asked why. I just thought she didn't want me." Ethan said softly, "She wanted you more than the world, Dad. She just didn't know how to tell you." For the first time in decades, Michael cried openly, not from grief, but from release. He looked at Ethan and said, "Your grandma. She saved us both." They hugged. The kind of hug that doesn't erase pain, but rewrites it. Months passed. Ethan took a new job, not in some faraway city, but right here in town. He said he couldn't leave the house yet. It still smelled like my perfume and old books. He turned my garden into a small community library, a quiet place where people could read, heal, and remember. He called it the Margaret Miller Corner. And on the door, he pinned a sign that read, "Every story deserves to be told, especially the ones written in silence." People began to come. Old women, lonely teenagers, tired fathers. They all came, sat among the roses, and told their stories to one another. And somehow, through their voices, mine lived on one night. Months later, Ethan dreamed of me. I was sitting in the garden writing, the sunlight warm on my face. He said in his dream. I turned and smiled. I told him, "You did it, Ethan. You broke the curse." It had been 6 months since Grandma passed away. But one rainy evening as I was cleaning her bookshelf, something strange happened. A single page fell out of her favorite book. A page that wasn't supposed to be there. And what was written on it changed everything I thought I knew about her life. Grief isn't loud. It's quiet. Like the sound of an empty teacup that never gets filled again. For half a year, I'd been living in Grandma's house, trying to keep her garden alive, her stories preserved. Some days I'd swear I could still hear her humming in the kitchen, or smell that faint lavender perfume she always wore. But it wasn't sadness anymore. It was something gentler, like she was still here, watching. Then one night, while it rained outside, I found it. The letter that would reopen every mystery I thought was already solved. I'd been reorganizing her bookshelf, just like she used to, alphabetically, with small handwritten notes tucked between the pages. Her favorite was Pride and Prejudice. She'd read it at least 10 times, and it was full of underlines and sticky notes that said things like, "Love is stubborn, and so am I." As I pulled the book out, something fluttered to the ground. A small, aged envelope wedged between the pages. It was yellowed and thin, sealed with wax. On the front, in her handwriting, were the words, "For when you think you've understood me." I froze. She'd left me another letter, one I wasn't meant to find until later. I sat down, heart racing, and broke the seal carefully. Inside was a single piece of paper, her familiar handwriting, elegant but shaky. "My dear Ethan, if you found this, it means you've begun to heal. That's good, because what I'm about to tell you isn't meant to hurt, but to free you. There's something I never told you about the man you called your grandfather. Charles wasn't my first love. Before him, there was someone else. Someone I couldn't marry because the world wouldn't let me. His name was Samuel. He was the father of the child I gave up. Your father, Michael. I told you Charles forgave me, and he did. But what you don't know is that Charles met Samuel before he died. They spoke. And what Samuel said changed Charles's heart forever. I never knew what they said that day, until after Charles's death, when I found a note in his wallet. It said, "She's always loved you. Let her go with peace. Ethan, I need you to find Samuel. If he's still alive, tell him thank you, because without him, our story would have never found its ending." Grandma, for hours I just sat there, reading and rereading those words. Grandpa had met the man who'd fathered my dad, and forgiven him. That didn't sound like a movie. It sounded impossible. But Grandma had asked me for one last thing. Find Samuel. So, I did. I spent days searching online, digging through old local archives, even visiting the retirement center where Grandma once volunteered. No one had heard of a Samuel Grant. Until one of the staff members said something that made my pulse quicken. "Wait, are you talking about the man who used to bring roses here every year? The one who said they were for someone named Margaret?" I nodded slowly. She said he passed away 2 months ago, but he left something behind. They led me to a storage room filled with labeled boxes. The woman handed me one marked, "Grant Samuel, Personal Effects." Inside were a few old photos, a broken pocket watch, and a sealed envelope. It was addressed to Margaret Miller. My heart pounded. I opened it. Inside was a letter written in the same kind, neat handwriting I'd seen on Grandma's old postcards. "My dearest Margaret, if this ever reaches you, know that I never stopped loving you. We were young, and the world wasn't kind. I don't blame you for what you had to do. In fact, I'm proud of you for surviving it. When I met Charles years later, I saw in his eyes the same love I once had for you. That's when I realized it wasn't about who loved you first. It was about who loved you longest. He told me he forgave you, and he asked if I could too. I told him. I forgave her before she ever needed it. Tell your grandson that the world can be cruel, but love doesn't belong to the past. It grows wherever it's watered. Samuel, tears blurred my vision. The man Grandma thought she'd lost had never stopped loving her. Even in silence, their love had endured. Patient, hidden, eternal. The letter mentioned a place. It had been exactly 1 year since Grandma passed away. The pain wasn't as sharp anymore, but some days it still found me in small ways. Her song, her smell, the way sunlight touched her chair. But that day, while renovating her old room, I found something that would change my family's life forever. A diary, not for me, but for someone she had never met. To Ethan's daughter, the girl who will carry my heart forward. I held the diary in my hands, trembling. It was wrapped in faded blue ribbon, the kind Grandma always used when she wanted something to feel special. The first page began with her familiar handwriting. My dearest little one, I don't know your name yet, but I already love you. If you're reading this, it means I've been gone a long time. But my love stories don't die. They just change hands. I didn't even realize I was crying until the ink began to blur under my tears. After Grandma's death, her room had become almost sacred. No one touched it much. Not because we were afraid, but because it still smelled like her, like comfort. But after a year, I knew it was time to open the window, let the light back in, and keep her memory alive by living. That's when I noticed something strange behind her old mirror. A small wooden box taped to the back. Inside it was the diary, a tiny key, and a folded photo. The photo showed Grandma holding a baby. But it wasn't me. On the back, in her handwriting, for the child yet to come, so she'll know where she came from. That night, I sat by her old lamp, the one that flickered like it was breathing, and began to read. My darling girl, if your father is anything like he is now, he's probably hovering behind you right now, making sure you're eating properly. Tell him I said, stop worrying. He gets that from me. I laughed through tears. I could almost hear her voice teasing me. Then the words shifted, deeper, more serious. You'll grow up in a world faster than mine ever was. But don't let the noise drown your heart, because the quiet moments, those are the ones that will build your soul. If you ever doubt yourself, read this next part out loud. I turned the page. You are not your mistakes. You are not your fears. You are the echo of every brave woman before you. And I hope you carry us gently. Love will test you. It will hurt you, but love anyway, because love is the only thing that makes life worth surviving. And when you feel like giving up, remember, somewhere, a woman with silver hair once fought her whole life just so you could breathe easy. I had to stop reading, because it felt like she wasn't gone at all. She was right there, whispering through paper and ink. As I turned another page, a small pressed flower fell out. A white daisy underneath it, written in her delicate script. Your father once gave me this flower when he was 7. He said, Grandma, this is for when you feel sad. I kept it because I knew one day I'd give it back, through you. The next paragraph hit me like thunder. Ethan, if you're reading this before she is, promise me something. Tell her the truth. Don't protect her from my story. Let her see it all. The love, the pain, the forgiveness. So she'll never think strength means silence, I whispered aloud. I promise, Grandma. 2 weeks later, life decided to surprise us again. My wife, Clara, and I had been trying for years to have a baby. And just when we'd stopped hoping, we got the call. She was pregnant. When I told Clara about the diary, she cried. She said, it's like your grandma knew, like she's watching over us. And in that moment, I believed it too. Months passed. The pregnancy wasn't easy. Clara had complications, stress, and days she felt like giving up. So every night I'd read her a few pages from Grandma's diary. But one night, something strange happened. As I flipped to the last page, I noticed the inside of the back cover was thicker, like 2 layers glued together. I peeled it open gently, and another letter fell out. It was sealed with the same lavender wax as her first ones, and on it, she'd written, "To Ethan, for the day your child is born." I didn't open it until the day came, the day our daughter entered the world. Her cries filled the hospital room, and for a moment it felt like time stopped. Then I reached into my pocket, opened the letter, and read, "My dearest Ethan, by now, you've lived through grief, forgiveness, and love. You've seen how endings can bloom into beginnings. So if you're holding your child right now, smile, because you've just met the continuation of every prayer I ever whispered. Name her something that carries light, because she'll need to guide others someday, just like you did for me. When she's old enough, give her this diary, and tell her my favorite truth. We don't choose who we become. We choose who we continue. All my love, forever, Grandma." By the time I finished reading, I could barely see through my tears. Our daughter slept peacefully in Clara's arms, and in that moment I felt something I hadn't felt since the day Grandma died. Peace. We named her Lila Margaret Grant, Lila, meaning playful, because Grandma always said laughter was sacred. Margaret, for the woman whose love still shaped us, even from beyond time. As Lila grew, I read her a page from Grandma's diary every night. She'd ask, "Did Grandma really write that for me?" It was a quiet summer morning. The roses in Grandma's garden were blooming again, brighter than I'd ever seen. That's when Lila, now 12, called out to me, "Dad, there's something under the bench." And what she found beneath that old wooden seat wasn't just a message. It was Grandma's final goodbye, and her last gift to us. The garden had always been her sacred place. Every stone, every flower, every scent of lavender still whispered her name. Lila grew up hearing stories of the woman she'd never met, but loved anyway. She knew Grandma through my words, and through the diary that carried her voice. But that day, she was about to meet Grandma in her own way. "Dad, look," Lila said, kneeling beside the bench. Her fingers brushed against something metal hidden in the dirt. A small rusted tin box, sealed with wax. My heart stopped. That same lavender wax. We brought it inside, washed off the dirt, and opened it together. Inside were 2 things: a small folded note and a key. On the outside of the note, Grandma's familiar handwriting read, "For Lila, when she's ready to understand." Lila looked up at me. "Dad, am I ready?" I smiled softly. "If Grandma thought you were, then yes, you are." Lila unfolded the paper carefully. The ink had faded a little, but the handwriting still danced across the page, steady and full of life. "My sweet Lila, if you're reading this, you've already grown into a curious young soul, just like your father once was. And I imagine he's sitting beside you right now, pretending he's not about to cry." Lila giggled, and I actually did wipe away a tear, she whispered. She knew you so well. "This letter isn't to tell you what to do. It's to show you what to remember." At the bottom of the letter was one sentence: "Use this key where stories sleep." I immediately knew what that meant. The small bookshelf in Grandma's old study. We hadn't opened it in years. When Lila turned the tiny key, a drawer clicked open. Inside was a small leather-bound notebook, different from the diary. This one was titled The Book of Tomorrows. The first page began with a date, the day Grandma had written her will. But what followed wasn't legal talk, it was prophecy. "Lila, the world will change faster than you can blink. You'll face moments where you'll want to hide your heart just to survive. Don't. Keep your heart loud. because quiet hearts forget how to dream. Your father will tell you stories of my mistakes. Believe them, but also know this. Every mistake carried love inside it, even if it didn't look like it. Between the pages, a photograph slipped out. It was Grandma holding my hand as a child, and beside her, an empty space where Lila had been drawn in pencil. A child sketched in with a soft smile, as if Grandma had imagined her years before she was born. On the back of the photo, a single sentence. I never got to hold you, but I carried you in every prayer. Lila pressed the photo against her chest. I wish I could have met her. I said, you did, sweetheart. Every time you laugh, she hears it. We kept reading together. Lila promised me something. Never measure your worth by what others think you can do. Measure it by how much love you can give, even when no one sees. One day, your father will make a mistake that reminds him of his old ways. When that day comes, don't judge him. Hug him instead, because that's how healing travels. I looked at her. Guess Grandma really knew everything, huh? Lila smiled. She even knew you'd mess up. We both laughed through our tears. The next morning, Lila woke up early and ran to the garden again. She said she felt Grandma calling. There, beside the bench, she began digging softly in the soil with her hands. A few minutes later, her fingers hit something wooden. A small box carved with roses. Inside was a locket. One side had Grandma's picture. The other, a mirror. Etched on the edge were the words, "For the one who carries the light." Lila held it up to her heart and whispered, "I'll keep it safe." That evening, she asked me to read the last part of the notebook aloud. My dearest Lila, the world may not always be kind to old souls like ours, but kindness isn't weakness. It's courage dressed in gentleness. If you ever doubt your purpose, go to the garden and plant something. A flower, a seed, a memory. That's how we talk to heaven. And if the night ever feels too dark, hold the locket to the moonlight. You'll see me smiling back, Lila whispered. Can I write in the book too? I nodded. That's exactly what Grandma wanted. Over the next few months, Lila began writing her own pages. Stories of her day, little lessons she learned at school, drawings of the roses that kept blooming. Every story ended the same way. Thank you, Grandma. I'm still learning, and something beautiful happened. Every page she wrote, the garden seemed to grow richer, fuller, as if Grandma's spirit smiled at every word. On the anniversary of Grandma's passing, we held a small gathering at the garden. Friends, neighbors, even strangers came, each carrying a flower and a note. Lila stood before them, holding the locket, and read a few words from Grandma's final letter. Grandma said stories don't end. They continue through us. So today I want everyone here to write one happy memory and bury it under the roses. That way love keeps growing. And they did. One by one, everyone placed a folded note into the soil. By sunset, the garden looked alive again, like it had been waiting for this moment. That night, after everyone left, they say stories never die. They just wait to be found again. And for 30 years, Grandma's garden stood silent, until one morning, my granddaughter knelt beside the old bench and whispered, Mom, someone left a letter here, and it has our name on it. By then, Lila was grown, a mother of 2, a writer, and the keeper of Grandma's legacy. The garden that once bloomed behind Grandma's home had become a sanctuary, a place where people came to leave letters, prayers, and memories. But that day felt different, because no one had been there in weeks. And yet, under the morning sunlight, a crisp white envelope rested neatly on the bench, sealed with lavender wax. Lila's hands trembled as she picked it up. She had seen that wax before, in old photos, in her father's stories, and in the boxes Grandma left behind. But this one looked new, too new. On the front, written in soft cursive, for the one who carries the garden now. Lila whispered, "That's me." She opened it slowly. Inside was a single folded page. "My dear, if you're reading this, it means the garden still lives. That's all I ever wanted. No signature, no date." But Lila knew that handwriting anywhere. She ran inside and found her father, Ethan, now old, gray and gentle. He was sitting by the window reading a worn copy of the garden letters. "Dad, someone left this." When he saw the wax, he froze. "Impossible," he whispered. "That seal burned away decades ago." Lila handed him the letter. His eyes scanned the words and his lips quivered. "It's her," he said softly. "It's Mom's handwriting." "But how?" Lila asked. He smiled faintly. "Maybe she never left, Lila. Maybe she just waited. For you." Lila turned the paper over. On the back, faintly visible under sunlight, were lines of text only seen when the light hit perfectly. "Go to where the first rose bloomed. The truth is waiting beneath the roots." Without a word, they walked to the far corner of the garden, where Grandma had first planted her roses more than 40 years ago. The soil was soft, almost like it had been turned recently. Lila knelt, dug gently with her hands, and soon hit something solid, a small glass jar wrapped in cloth. Inside, another letter and a key. The letter inside was fragile but intact. "My dearest ones, if this has found you, it means you've carried love further than I ever dreamed. But there's one last story you don't know yet. My story before you all existed." Lila read aloud while Ethan listened, tears glistening in his eyes. "Before I became a grandmother, I was a young woman who made mistakes. I lost people I loved. I hurt. I healed. And I learned that love isn't about never leaving. It's about always returning in some way. So I buried this letter not to be found, but to be returned, to prove that love travels through time when it's planted with care. The key you found opens the drawer in my old writing desk, the one no one ever touched. Inside, you'll find the last piece of my story." That evening, Lila and Ethan visited Grandma's old house. Dust covered everything, but the desk remained exactly where it always stood. The key fit perfectly. The drawer creaked open, revealing a small leather-bound journal titled "The Last Season." Lila turned the first page. Winter 1973, the year I realized love never really leaves. She kept reading. It wasn't a story about family this time. It was about Grandma's youth, her first love, her heartbreak, the child she lost before Ethan, the woman she became through grief, and at the very end, the words that silenced the room. "If I hadn't lost, I wouldn't have learned to love again. And if I hadn't loved again, none of you would exist." Ethan pressed his hand over his heart. "She never told me," he whispered. Lila nodded. "Maybe she didn't need to. She just wanted us to understand." Weeks later, Lila began restoring Grandma's old desk, turning it into a small writing corner for her own daughter, Maya. One evening, as Maya scribbled in her notebook, she asked, "Mom, did Grandma ever meet me?" Lila smiled. "Not in person, but she met you in her dreams." Maya tilted her head. "Then maybe she'll dream me again someday." That simple sentence froze Lila, because it sounded exactly like something Grandma would have said. That night, Lila dreamed of the garden, but it wasn't like before. It was glowing softly, petals made of light, and sitting on the bench was Grandma. She looked younger now, calm and radiant. She smiled. "Don't cry, my darling. I told you. Stories don't end," Lila whispered. "Was it really you who left the letter?" Grandma chuckled. "Maybe. Or maybe love just finds its own way to speak." She reached out, brushed Lila's cheek, and said one final thing. "Tell her the garden is hers now." When Lila woke up, her hand still smelled faintly of lavender. A few days later, Maya was playing by the roses when she shouted, "Mom, look!" On the soil carved by tiny roots were the initials MG Grandma's, and beside it, a single new flower had bloomed overnight. A white rose, glowing under sunlight. No one had planted it. Lila smiled softly. "She's still teaching," she whispered. Years later, Maya grew into a young woman. She carried Grandma's locket everywhere and started writing stories just like her mother and great-grandmother did. Her debut book was called The House That Remembered, and in the dedication, she wrote, "For the woman who turned goodbye into forever, people across the world read it, cried, and began planting gardens in memory of their own loved ones." The Garden Letters movement became a global symbol of remembrance and renewal. And somewhere in all of it, Grandma's voice still echoed. Ethan passed away quietly one spring morning. He was found in the garden sitting on the bench, a peaceful smile on his face. In his lap was a note. No one knew who placed it there. It read, "Welcome home, my boy. The garden missed you." At his memorial, Lila read the final lines from Grandma's last diary. "When love is planted deep enough, it doesn't matter who waters it. It will always bloom again." She closed the book, placed it beside the roses, and whispered, "It's your turn now, Maya." Maya smiled, tears in her eyes, and said softly, "I'll make sure her story never ends." Some people think time erases love, but maybe time is just the garden love grows in. Grandma didn't leave us a story. She left us a cycle, a reminder that love, once planted, never dies. It just finds a new heartbeat. And if someday another child kneels beside that same bench, I hope they find another letter waiting, because that's how eternity writes back. If this story touched your heart, keep the garden alive, subscribe, and let Grandma's story continue through you.